Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Game Vault. I'm Captain Beefy. As always, I thank you for joining me here today. Our video today is going to be 5 things I hate about open world games. Now, I recently did a video on 5 things I love about open world games, and today we're going to go the opposite direction and talk about 5 things I hate. Alright, well, maybe that's too strong of a word, but you'll catch my drift, and many of you will probably agree with one or more of these viewpoints. So, without further ado, and not in any specific order, let me present the 5 things I hate about open world games. First off, let's talk about side quests. Now, side quests alone are not a bad thing. In fact, they often flesh out a game world, teaching us things about the game, the character, and the world in which we're playing that we normally wouldn't have discovered had we ignored them. Sometimes the benefits from completing a side quest are excellent. Experience points, skill points, and special weapons or armor are often granted upon their completion. So what's my issue with them? Well, there are a couple, to be frank. First and foremost, many side missions are nothing more than a distraction from the main story, and when you focus on them, you tend to ignore that main story and lose track of what you were doing and why. Trying to find your lost kid or stop the villain from destroying the world? I'm on it. But first, let me go ahead and locate some random kid's lost dog or recover the blacksmith's father's sword from a nearby castle. It's even worse when the side quest involves something that feels time sensitive and makes you feel guilty if you don't jump right on it. A man's wife captured by bandits doesn't seem like something you can just walk away from without feeling a little bad about yourself. But if it keeps you from saving the world from destruction, doesn't that make it a bad choice? Sometimes these little side missions seem like they'll be quick, but then they turn out to be far more time consuming than you anticipated. I've had plenty of situations where I've gone off to do a simple task and I end up being wrapped up in a multi-tiered story that requires me to traverse the map to several different locations and fight multiple enemies or solve several puzzles before I can go back to the person who sent me off on the journey in the first place so I can collect my reward. Then there can be an overwhelming number of side missions in some games. Not only that, but there are often several different classes of side missions which are delegated to multiple lists in your journal, which complicates things further and can make some games a little bit overwhelming. Microtransactions are another issue in open world games. Not all of them, and I do get their purpose. They make money for the developer, and I don't begrudge their existence in some situations, but if I paid full price for a game, I don't like having to spend more money on the game to make my gameplay easier. Some games will lock better weapons, armor, and items behind a paywall that will require you to spend real-world money to attain them. Not cool. I have no issues with DLC packs that offer more gameplay, such as new modes or maps and missions that further the story, nor do I have a problem with skins that can visually customize your character and his loadout. Neither of these examples impact the base game in any way and are completely optional when playing the original game that you purchased. Developing a game costs a fortune, I get that, especially a AAA open world title, and if they offer any type of multiplayer system that requires them to maintain servers, that cost continues to compound long after the release. Microtransactions often help offset that cost and extend the life cycle of the game. Developers will often use revenue from microtransactions to provide new content that's freely added to the game long after its launch. That justifies them too, but some companies, they're just greedy. And that can be very frustrating when you pay $60 or more for a game and the developer wants to nickel and dime you for items that should be available and attainable while you're playing. Now let's talk about lore. Lore in and of itself is not a problem in an open world game. How it's presented, however, is. I'm not the biggest lore hound out there. In fact, I value gameplay far more than world building, especially when the world building involves scrolling through pages of text, progressing through wheels of conversation, or watching hours of cutscenes during the overall time span of the game. That's not to say I don't appreciate the occasional break in gameplay where I can rest my hands after an intense gunfight or a frustrating platforming session and just sit back and enjoy as the next part of the story unfolds from time to time, as these moments can be quite satisfying, especially when you spend a significant amount of time grinding away at the game to get there. My favorite way to get a nice lore dump is through an audio log or an exposition dump that I get through a radio or similar device. Let the audio play when I find the log, or let the call play in the background while I continue on my merry way, mowing down enemies or exploring the world. To me, that's an efficient way to feed me the lore of the game. Alright, well let's talk about mini-games now. They can be a real pain in the rear end. Be it playing cards in The Witcher 3, rolling dice in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or playing a strange derivative of chess in Horizon Forbidden West, mini-games offer a wide variety of ways for the player and the character to take a break from traversing the land so they can sit down, relax, and goof around for a bit. Nothing wrong with that, right? Wrong. If I get a bit antsy and want to stop playing the game for a bit, what makes a developer think I want to stay in their world to do this? If I want to play chess, I'll grab a chessboard, or I'll play it online. I don't want my character to waste time doing this in-game when the fate of the world is hanging in the balance. In addition to minigames, there are other distractions that are similarly annoying. Horizon games have fighting pits, hunting grounds, mount racing, and other situations to overcome. Assassin's Creed Valhalla has cairnstone stacking, beer guzzling, and platforming puzzles in the Animus to occupy the player's time. Sometimes they're fun, but for the most part, I just find them to be a bit of a distraction and a slight annoyance. Last but not least, let's talk about crafting. Now, crafting itself is not the issue. In fact, it's kind of cool and can be a fun way to create new weapons and items, upgrade armors, and repair things that degrade over time. A lot of crafting requirements can be located regularly throughout just regular gameplay, and looting falling enemies or opening any variation of a chest or a box that can be found, frankly, all over the world. There are also items that are limited to certain areas of the map, so that can only be found on certain enemy types. Again, no issue there, as it compels the player to explore areas of the map that they may not normally visit or that they rush through on their initial playthrough. What gets frustrating, however, is when crafting menus become so complex that you find yourself hauling around dozens of different materials, from flowers to wood to hunks of metal ore and everything in between to make various items in the game. Most games balance crafting requirements nicely, having a handful of levels to various items or just a couple levels of upgrades available, but others end up being insanely intensive, forcing the player to grind out hours of gameplay just to upgrade a medical pack or a weapon mod to maximize its effectiveness. I'm looking at you, Dying Light 2. The Horizon games are similarly frustrating as something as simple as the player's pouch, which determines how much of each of the various ammunitions you can carry as well as other items, requires you to upgrade item-specific portions of the pouch instead of just having to upgrade it overall. How many rabbits am I going to have to kill before I'm maxed out across the board, game? Now, to be perfectly honest, most of the things I've listed here today have only a minor impact on my enjoyment of an open-world game, and some can be ignored overall without impacting the story or the gameplay itself. Let me know what you find frustrating in these games. Do you agree with my assessment, or do you have a completely different take? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to ring that bell for notifications so you can come back and join in on the conversation on future discussions. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and I appreciate your time. I'll see you next time.